afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Mindful Moment with the Sharpen Voice Foundation, State of the Black Male. This afternoon, we have with us, of course, Dr. Tequilla Hill, and our special guest this afternoon, Mr. Ellington Jackson. Welcome.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with us. So let's just jump right in. What brought you to your chosen profession?
Wow. What brought me to my chosen profession? I think it's a combination of passion and one of the things that I think is key to success oftentimes is stumbling forward into success. So I think a combination of passion and the discovery process of stumbling forward into real estate and real estate finance.
Mm, wow. Okay. I'm sorry. I was taken aback by stumbling forward. I don't think I've ever heard someone say that. I've heard failing forward. I've never heard stumbling forward. So I was taking that in, Mr. Jackson. So sorry. I was like, oh wow. I was thinking about
Yeah,
that.
no, I mean
But I'm curious.
they're kind of the same
Yeah.
concept, I would argue.
Yeah. No, I like it. I like it. But since you started off with like talking about stumbling forward, I'm curious about the mindset that you've had to adopt to manage kind of like the ebbs and flows of your profession.
It's a really good question. Um, Mindset that I had to adopt, I would say, is adaptation. Um, and probably to your former point, being comfortable with failure. But I really tend to feel that if you're moving forward, then it's not necessarily as much of a failure, right? Failure is the shot that you don't take. So the primary mindset is adaptation, being able to take on new and unexpected problems. Oftentimes in situations where you may not know that you have the resources, and so you have to go acquire new resources, or you have to take the resources that you currently have and deploy them in different and unique fashions to overcome obstacles that you just could not foresee coming. So the primary mindset is probably being adaptation and staying nimble.
Okay. And I mean, I guess you've already answered my question, but just as a black man, like, do you think that that was kind of like your ace in a hole, your like secret sauce to being able to navigate the landscapes you've been in professionally? Is that mindset, like, despite being a black man and all the things that are often stacked against all of us, do you think it was your mindset that was the thing that helped you navigate those spaces being a black male?
Um, it's an interesting question. I never really considered being black as an advantage in real estate. Um,
Oh, I
I
meant
think
your
the only
mindset. I meant your
oh,
mindset
my
as the
mindset.
advantage, and then being a black male and all that came with. So I'm sorry if I didn't say that clearly, but
No
um,
problem. I think I can tie the two concepts together and say, in response to your question, the answer would be yes, in the sense that there are a lot of adaptation skills as brown and black people that we develop just to be a part of this society, right? There are a lot of code switching techniques that we develop, and there are a lot of ways where we learn to mask ourselves in environments that we might not perceive to be completely friendly to us. So in some ways, yes, I think that the mindset of a black man has helped me in ways. It helps me understand my position very clearly, and so it's difficult to know where you're going until you know where you are. So when I walk in a room, I know where I am. There's me and that other person on the other side of the room. And, we kind of lock eyes and say what's up. And then from there, the adaptation mindset kicks in. What do I need to do? What do I need to be? Who's moving where? What's happening? How am I asking questions? How am I pulling information? How am I giving information? So I do think there is an overlap between the skill sets that you just innately learn from being black and brown in this country, and then also learning how to overcome adversity. It's just the mindset we learn to deal with.
So take us through your professional journey.
So that is a good question. I think I'll probably start with banking. Banking is where I would say, actually, I'd have to back up. It started with sales. For a little over a decade, I was in sales in various forms or another. One of the things that you learn in sales is the psychology of how someone buys something, what are buying questions, and most importantly, if you truly are a good salesperson, you learn how to listen. And real estate truly is about solving a problem. And in order to understand the problem, you have to listen. But more specific skill sets came in banking. I was in banking for a bit, did business banking. From there, I launched a lending firm, which gave me the opportunity to understand the commercial lending side of things. The lending led me to do some joint ventures and start to understand the development side of things. And then over time, I obtained my general contractor's license. And so now I have a fairly vertically integrated lending firm, development firm, and general contracting firm where I'm able to understand how to get capital, how to help clients get capital, how to deploy that capital so that way underwriters are comfortable, and then the GC resources that allow me the mindset on how construction is done. And then I also end up taking some discounts as far as margins are concerned because I'm doing everything in-house. So it's led me to where I'm at now.
So what keeps you passionately committed to your current role as a CEO?
Linda, I didn't know our questions were that interesting. I love how all the participants often say, well, that's a good question. I'm like, I'm glad y'all think
so. I'd say time. I think time keeps me passionate. The other thing that keeps me passionate is having the opportunity to create. Real estate is also about creation and building. So you get to have a vision about a particular parcel of land, about a particular building, about architecture, and then you literally get to see that come to fruition. And then after you've built it, its utility to society, like it now gets used. If it's a commercial space and it's retail, then now it's a store. That's a very satisfying feeling. If it's residential and someone lives there, well, now it's a home. And so I think it's a very satisfying feeling for me to be able to create. And then in the creation process, also provide jobs and design, and it's artistic, and you get to work with your hands. There's a lot of skill sets that have synergistic effect for me when it comes to real estate, and it fuels my passion. So I wake up and I do it again, despite all the obstacles.
Ellington, I mean, was it, because I'm curious, when you started your professional career to where you are now, was it purposeful that you took like real estate and like finance and like made those things like vehicles by which you give back to your respective community? Like, was that like purposeful, or did it just kind of like happen and like how life kind of unfolded for you?
A bit of both. So originally I started out wanting to go into wealth management. And I had actually obtained my Series 6 and 63. I've had a life license, life insurance. I've had a health insurance license. And one of my original primary goals was, at the time, I wanted to manage my mom's retirement account. Like, that was sort of a guiding light. And along that path, I was willing to help brown and Black people understand finance, understand how finance worked, and help them retire well, help them manage portfolios. Over time, I learned that I didn't like answering questions about other people's money. And I enjoy watching the market, but I only enjoy watching the market for my own money and maybe close personal friends and family, right? I didn't want to make a business of it. for me. However, real estate allowed me to do that exact same thing. Oftentimes, people's largest investment tends to be their home or maybe their investment portfolio, right? These are their largest assets. So I'm able to complete that same mission, but just in a different lane and something that speaks more to my skill set. I think there are a number of life insurance like agents. I think there are very few developer, lender, general contractors that can help a family with whatever their non-residential, whatever their non-primary real estate portfolio happens to be.
Okay. Given the highs and lows of your position in your current role, how do you stay well mentally and physically to kind of help buffer those highs and low periods?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So I would say, giving the highs and lows of real estate life, and we know the markets and things like that, there's different pressures and things that come along with it. How do you stay well mentally and physically to help you buffer?
Oh, yeah, mental health question. That's tough.
How do you stay well?
So I work out.
Yeah.
I work out. I run as best I can, but I think the best way that I stay mentally healthy is I remind myself to forgive myself for what I don't know. I remind myself to forgive myself for the stumbles as I'm stumbling forward, and I remind myself to stay vigilant. And what you don't know, you can find out, and what you don't know, you can always meet someone who's probably more than willing and happy to help from a business standpoint. On a personal level, the classics. I try and wake up and make my bed and work out in the morning and eat something healthy and, keep the place clean, go for a run, spend time with family as best I can. I'm a bit remote from them. And that's it. I wish I could tell you it's been an easy journey, particularly with COVID. It has its moments, but I'm doing good. I think I'm doing good.
Ellington, if you could have, say, the 18-year-old version of you or the 12-year-old version of you sitting with us right now, what wisdom or advice would you give your younger self if you could?
I would probably tell him to just buy an island in the Caribbean, build a house, and just be done. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. I know what you think you want to do, and I know where you think you're gonna. Don't do this. Just buy the island, build a house, get a little motorboat, and find some friends, find a woman, have a family, and ride out the hurricanes. That's probably what I do. No, I mean, that advice, one. Two, that's an interesting question. Because I wish I could figure out a way to save him some time. Unfortunately, if I try and save him time, I'm not sure what lesson would get skipped. I think the only piece of advice that I could give that would be useful is make new mistakes faster. Don't spend as much time making the same mistake over and over and over again. Learn from this mistake faster to get to whatever the new mistake is, and make that mistake fast so that way you can keep stumbling forward.
Thank you.
I think sometimes they often say, I don't remember, it's the quote or something about you repeat some cycles or you repeat different obstacles in life because you haven't learned from it yet. And when you learn from it, that's when you're able to kind of elevate and move on to the next level. But I think a lot of times it gets missed because we're not introspective enough to kind of take a look at what was I supposed to, everything's going to hell in my life right now, right? So like, how do I own my part in it? There's always external factors, but how do I own my part? What did I do in order for me to kind of move forward from it? And if we never look at ourselves like that, or if we never look at situations in our lives like that, then we're going to repeat it. time
Exactly.
after time after time in different situations until you look at, like you said, learning from those mistakes quicker. Because if not, we're going to keep repeating those same mistakes. So that's a wonderful point.
Yeah. I think the other thing, to your point, that I would probably tell myself is learn what it means to be a leader. Take leadership training, read leadership books, talk to your elders, really begin to understand what it means to walk in the shoes of being a leader, regardless of what you decide to do.
And speaking about looking at leaders and things like that, talk to us about how was it important for you to see other Black men operating in the same positions that you had aspired to be at one point in life? Or was that something that was important to you at all? Or did it have an impact on you?
I mean, it's important. It's always good to see sort of a future version of you, or a more elevated version of you, just to have someone to relate to. Like, even if you guys don't talk shop, right? Even if you just go to the golf course or go to the bar and just talk. A kindred spirit, someone who's walked a path that you've walked. So seeing other Black men in commercial real estate, and there aren't as many, obviously. Here in Boston, there's a good number of us, a handful of us, that are seriously going around and finding properties, acquiring them, either holding them, or fixing, flipping them, or doing ground up construction projects, or doing full on development projects. There's a handful of us. And it's good to see it. It gives you fuel, right? It gives you fuel to keep trying to move forward in your own business, but at the same time, try and find something that's a little bit unique about your business, so that way you can have a competitive edge, and you can bring something that's slightly different, right? So seeing other individuals and having access and having the ability to have conversations is great. But I think it also kind of harkens back to one of your previous questions, which is, how do you deal with the mental health, right? There's a group that I'm a part of here in Boston, and started by a gentleman who's in commercial real estate doing really well. And he sent out a group text. It's mostly guys in the group, 50, 100. I'm not sure, but a lot, thankfully. And one of the text messages that he sent out this morning to the group was that, hey, I know it doesn't get said a lot, but guys, you're worth something. Guys, we love you. Guys, keep at it, right? It was a really sort of unexpected, uplifting sort of post. So I think one of the things that helps when you see somebody in a higher position or doing well, it helps your mental health. One, it helps validate the path that you're on, because one of the most difficult things about being an entrepreneur is when you wake up and you're forging a new path, right? I don't come from a long line of this, like my father's father's father, right? So as you're forging a new path, you ostensibly wake up to a forest every morning, and you've got a machete in your hand and a forest standing in front of you and a path behind you. As you're leading individuals, they're on the path. So that's great for them. But as the entrepreneur, oftentimes you're cutting through brush and cutting through this field, trying to find and or make this path. And so when you see other individuals that have made it, that have ascended, it just sort of validates and gives you wind to your back to help you keep moving forward, which is good for your mental health as a Black man doing this line of work.
Okay, well, Mr. Ellington, Linda and I love all things affirmation, uplifting, edifying words. Are there any affirmations, sayings, or mantras that you employ on a daily basis that you'd like to share with us and for our viewers?
Oh.
It could be two. I know one is hard. If you want to give me two or three, I'm okay with three, or more than three.
I mean, one of them is a classic, right? Well, I've got two classics and one of my own. So the first classic is if you don't have time to do it right the first time, when will you find the time to do it right a second, right? The second one is keep it simple, stupid. I've got business partners that do their best to help me keep it simple. I'm really good at forgetting to keep it simple sometimes. So I'm constantly focused on trying to keep it simple. And the third one is one I try and employ is understand your room. Understand where you are in the space that you're in. And oftentimes not all rooms are as warm. And so I'm constantly trying to decide of the 5 rooms I could be in, am I in a room with my tribe? Am I in a room with my community? Am I in the room with my network? Am I in the room with the prairie folks, just any and everybody? Or am I in the room with the Badlands? And depending on where I find myself on one of those 5 rooms is kind of how I govern myself and how much shielding I have up, how much sword I have up, or versus if my arms are open. So those are probably the 3 that I'm trying to consistently be mindful of in order to stay mentally healthy, navigate, and attain whatever level of success I'm able to attain.
Thank you for that.
Well, here at with Sharp and Moist Foundation, we are, about creating new trajectories for our underserved. And along with that goes with the whole family, right? So not just, focusing on the students or on the kids, but as well as the whole family. So talk to us about the advice that you would give people in our community in regards to financial literacy and wealth building through real estate.
Jesus. I'll try and keep it simple. Right. So that's a lot. The simplest advice I could probably give is if you can buy a multifamily, buy a multifamily. If you can't buy a multifamily and live in it, then try and buy at least an investment property, even if you have to form a group. The best advice I can give is probably a perspective and a vision more so than an actual practice outside of buy multifamilies, right? My firm exists to sort of bring that to fruition. It's very easy for me to say, hey, go buy a multifamily. And someone watching says, I want to buy a multifamily. And then we take that first step. Okay, now how do I actually get into ownership? And once I'm in ownership, how do I sustain it? There are times where we as Black and Brown people might find ourselves in possession of a non-performing asset, and trying to get it to become an actual viable business becomes challenging. Not because you lack the skill set or intelligence, you just might not have the resources, or most often, if you have another job and children, you just run out of time, right? There's only but so much time in the day and so much spiritual energy that any one person has. But I would say the vision that I would want to give someone is cooperative economics, or as it's also known, syndication. We need to do more deals together. You don't need to buy a multifamily by yourself. You don't. You need to find other people who want to own multifamilies, and maybe together 2, 4, 6, 8 of you buy one. And now all of a sudden the capital required to come up changes, and the time required of you to make it successful all gets broken up by 1/8. And then the 8 of you decide to hire somebody. So now all of a sudden the load is a lot less, but you're a part of this. I think that cooperative economics and syndication of deals, even if they're small deals, just to practice, I think is key. And I think it's something that we in general aren't doing enough of, but specifically in real estate aren't doing enough of.
Wow. Let me just say, Ellington, sitting and talking with you, it was so refreshing to hear a Black man operate with such self compassion, such clarity and wisdom in how they operate. So thank you for this. This was,
And you
yeah,
talking about me?
about you, brother. Yes. Like,
Oh,
yeah, this is just being honest.
Dr.
That's,
Moy, she's talking about me. Okay.
I
All right.
see
Well, thank you.
that. I see.
yeah, that was it.
I thought it was the guy behind me. I was like, is there somebody
It's
back
definitely
there?
Mr. Jackson. It's you. Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
there was somebody
Compassion,
back
clarity.
there.
If no one's ever told you that, Dr. Hill just told you that, brother,
I
because that's
appreciate
what it.
that. I do. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, what about the families who are currently they're renting right now, right?
Right.
What am I going to do? I'm renting. My credit score is a 580. I'm working two jobs. I've had a consistent job, but how do I even get started? Where do I start in trying to build some generational wealth for my kids, for my family through real estate?
That is a great question. There is one fairly simple answer. I'm not going to say that the task is easy, but there's one fairly simple answer. And the first answer is save money. Save money that's difficult to get to. Don't throw it in your savings account that's connected to your debit card and your debit card has overdraft protections from your savings account. Start a completely separate online, maybe Ally, right? Maybe ING, right? Completely separate account and have these monies diverted directly from your paycheck into this savings account, so much so that you forget it, right? Save money. That would be probably my first bit of advice. The second thing is what most people run up against. I was a realtor for a while. What most people run up against is they want to live someplace that they can't really afford, right? They want to live either where they are right now or where people are going over there. And that's great. That's wonderful. But you can't afford that, right? And so it makes the most sense. And I think this might have been the adage I should have given you, Dr. Hill, or Linda, I can't remember who asked the question, is get in where you can get in. That's one of the things that I'm really key on when I'm looking for projects. Yes, I have all these other criterias, but sometimes you just got to get in where you can get in. And it's more about getting in the game, because once you're in the game, you're in the game, you're on the playing field. And so you might have to look at areas that are a little bit further from where you currently are, and then figure out the logistics, how to navigate work and how to navigate school. There's a lot of infrastructure projects. The Biden bill just got passed. So there are going to be more buses, there's going to be more trains, there's going to be more commuter rails. You might have to move a little bit further out in order to get back in. The key is to remember when you move further out, and this is the most important part from a budget standpoint, is that you're leveling off and you're stabilizing how much it costs for you to live. If you are renting, you are constantly subjected to someone else's decision on how much it's going to cost for you to put a roof over your head. The owner of your unit right now could decide, I want to raise rents by $1,000. If that were to happen, what would you do? What could you do? So I would say to people in those positions, yes, there's credit. I think there are more than enough ways for individuals to figure out how to fix their credit. But if you're saving money, then you should at some point have enough money to put down to bring that credit score down. I mean, to bring that balance down, to bring that credit score back up, right? And if you're looking outside of or a little bit further from where you are now, one, usually prices go down. Two, you usually get a little bit more space. But three, with the understanding of this is a 4 to 10 year time horizon. So where you're going, no one wants to be right now in the price points or at the price points that they're at. But in 5 to 10 years, you could be in the next hotspot. And now your house that you bought for 300 is now worth 650, and you've been paying on it. So now you've got $350,000 worth of equity that you can do something with, that you can send a child to school with, that you can start a business with. that you can call us up and say, hey, I'm looking to buy that second property. It just might take a little bit more time than expected, or you have to be deliberate about the time you have now. Either way, 5 years from now, you're going to be 5 years older. So you can either be renting or you can own a little bit further out.
That's so true. Because I think sometimes people wait, right? We're waiting.
Yeah.
They're waiting for the market
for the right time.
They're waiting for the right. It's never going to be the right time. There's never the right time to do anything. Like, right? You just got to make sure you plan, take calculated risk. And when I say calculated, mean that you figured out the pros and the cons of doing X, Y, and Z. And like you said, you buy that first condo, that condo 5 years from now is going to worth a whole lot more money than what you paid for, just because of the way that life is, inflation, et cetera. Everything goes up.
I think people forget that a lot. People, I don't want to live there. There's nothing out there. Yeah, today.
Yep. That is very true. Very, very true. So in looking at, we have various audiences that, that watches our YouTube videos and everything like that we put out. And you talked about this just a little bit. What advice would you give a young man looking to go into entrepreneurship? They're trying to figure themselves out. They already know that they have the mindset like, I don't think college is for me, right? What advice would you give them for in going into entrepreneurship?
Do they want to go into real estate, or do they just want to go into entrepreneurship?
I mean, you've been in various spaces, whether it's real estate or not, but entrepreneurship, even if they want to go into real estate, what advice would you give them?
If they want to go into real estate, I've got a great answer. If they just want to go into entrepreneurship, I might have a not so great answer. So I'll give you the great answer first. If you want to go into real estate and you're an entrepreneur and you're a young man, and your knees still work, they work because that statement made no sense to you, I would learn a trade. I would learn to be an electrician. I would learn to be a plumber. I would learn HVAC. I would learn roofing. I would learn a trade. So that way your business has a baseline revenue and you can build a life. One of the things that's usually true about relatively or remarkably wealthy people is, to some degree, they've got a foundation. They've got a home to go to. It's difficult, if not impossible, to build a business if your home life isn't stable. And you learn that trying to juggle the two, I need to, sort of buy my own home to live in for my own family, but I also need to buy more real estate, can be a very difficult thing to do. If you already have a trade, having a baseline level of income and being in demand is easy. Regardless of automation, regardless of AI, regardless of a lot of the ways the economy is going and the world is going as tech starts to take over, you're always going to need a human hand to fish electrical lines through framing. I imagine at some point there'll be a bot that can do that, but we are a ways away from a bot that can do that. A lot of the clerical and secretarial stuff, there's a company called UiPath. They've got bots that do a lot of this work, right? A lot of the low-level and mid-level management. But if you're a young man and you want to get into real estate, learn a trade. So that way your business can also be a job for you. And they both can be one and the same. And you can work your job while simultaneously learning more about your business, and your business will make you better at your job, and your job will make you better at your business, and stay consistent, right? If you're not going into real estate and you want to go into something else, that's a little bit trickier. And this is an individual who didn't go to college. You've got to probably find a mentor. You've got to find somebody who needs help and solve that person's problem in exchange for them teaching you something and allowing you to earn some income in whatever it is. I don't know, biotech, I'm not sure. But it's going to be difficult to forge a path and also not have a degree, which comes with a lot of setbacks. And then also trying to work a job that allows you to cover your personal expenses. and then still grow the business, because then you might not have enough capital to grow the business. And then it might be difficult to find financing because you don't have a degree. And if you don't have a degree, you don't have a high level job, which means you might not have the experience that the bank is looking for, right? And it starts to snowball. Whereas if you can find a mentor or find an individual that is doing what you want to do and is doing it well and is trying to scale, or arguably maybe is already the 800-pound gorilla, both have their pros and their cons, and work with that person and do your best to solve some problems for them. Don't go at it alone, though. I will say that. Don't go at it alone.
Both were great advice. You said you had one that was not so bad.
That one wasn't that bad? Okay.
No, it really wasn't. It really wasn't.
No, okay.
I think mentorship in any space or any arena is very good advice to give to anyone, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether or not you're at a job, right? So, I mean, aspiring to be something else is easy. It's good for you to learn from someone who has already done that, been there, done that. That way you can, like we said earlier, avoid those pitfalls and those obstacles that you don't have to overcome because you know how to kind of maneuver because you've had that mentorship. So I think that was wonderful advice.
Yeah, it's difficult without the degree. If it was someone who had a degree, I would have told you, get a job, keep your job, and wait until your business can outperform your job by twofold. Because what you want to do is once the business can supplant your salary, you should hire someone to help you run your business. And then once you have enough money again, then you can leave. That would be the advice if you had the degree and was working. But if you don't have the degree, it's hard to get a job, particularly as Black and brown people, that will pay you enough to get you into the rooms to learn what you really need to learn.
I'm glad that you mentioned that about people that have jobs, have degrees, that want to become entrepreneurs, to keep that job until their actual side, your actual side hustle or side business is actually paying well enough.
Don't stop working.
Honestly, because if you look at social media, you look at everyone glamorizes entrepreneurship, right? And we're all here entrepreneurs, and we know that it's hard. It is hard until you have that stability and that balance, and because when you leave, you're not getting a paycheck every 2 weeks, guaranteed, right? So I think that's great advice that if you are currently in a position or in a job and then you have your business, as we call a side hustle, keep that job until the side hustle or the business is making you more money than what you're making at the job. Don't just quit because everyone out here on social media land is telling you entrepreneurship is the best thing since sliced bread. Yes, it is in some forms, in some aspects, but it's also hard work. And you have to, like we said earlier, take those calculated risks and make sure that you're going to be successful so that you don't have to quit that job and then, oops, I need to find another job because I didn't realize I'm not getting a paycheck in my bank account every 2 weeks when I was actually working for X, Y, and Z company.
Yep.
Yeah. We're all products of that. All of us, we had degrees, we worked jobs, we got skills. The skills that we learned belongs to us. It's not just for the job. And then when we went off on our own, we took all of that wisdom and knowledge and skill set to apply to our businesses. So it wasn't just we just quit our jobs yesterday. Like we honed our skill sets and allowed them to manifest for us in different ways. So I love that you said that, Ellington, because people need to hear that.
Relationships too.
Answer, but it's a real answer, and it's a wide.
Yeah, the relationships too. No one talks about the CEO of a Fortune 100 company that started his own venture firm, and in 2 years they raised however many billions of dollars, right? He's an entrepreneur and he did well fast. No, he didn't do well fast. He was working for a Fortune 100 company as CFO and had relationships. He just, hey, I'm over here now. And they said, what? You're over here now? Right? So you also get to bring the relationships over. If you're working for a firm or if you're working for a large firm, oftentimes just the context in which that company exists, you get to be in rooms that normally your little small Instagram firm, you don't even know about it, let alone can actually get in. and and that's not to be patronizing, because there are a lot of people doing really well on Instagram, right? But there's still just some rooms that you're not in. Whereas oftentimes your job gives you the context and the leverage to get in rooms and then to meet people, and then that those people become a part of your Rolodex. And should you decide to do something else, now it's a phone call. Hey, remember when we touched base about this? It's no, yeah, how's that going? Well, you know, that went well, but I transitioned over to something else. Let me tell you about it. And boom. So that's my
Yes,
advice.
that relationship, that community that you build is very, very important in all aspects, especially business. And like you said, the entrepreneurship life as well. It's very, very, very important.
The training too. You get a lot of good training that you kind of take for granted. Like when you're at the job and they're like, "Oh, you have to take your training." I'm like,
Take all those trainings. That's wisdom. That's knowledge. Take them all.
The training? I did this one. This is the same thing. Like the bank had AML training, anti-money laundering, every year. It was the same thing every year. But now in my business, I understand how I am and am not going to move money, right? Because I don't want the bank throwing up red flags.
Exactly. And then you can, when you're talking about your firm, you can say, hey, I have an anti-money laundering training or certified in X, Y, and Z. Why? You got that on the job on someone else's dime. So get all of the certificates that you can and all the training that you can on someone else's dime. Because you, like Dr. Hill said, you take those skills with you, whether you're still with that company or not. You're able to take those skills with you. But again, somebody else paid for it and you didn't have to. So just about being smart, working smarter and not harder in life in general. But Mr. Jackson, what do you want your legacy to be? When it's all said and done, what would you like for your legacy to be?
That face, the face.
My legacy. I'm about to die. I'm about to die.
No, we're talking 40 years from now.
Yes, not when you die.
What do you want your legacy to be?
When we're like in our 60s,
I got real concerned. That's a good question. I struggle with that, but I think more than anything, I don't know if I've figured out what I want a public legacy to be, but I want the private legacy, like what I can hold on to is that in some way I help sustain and grow Black and brown wealth. For a single family, just one family. And if one turns to two, and if two turns to four, and if four turns to eight, and if eight turns to 16, and if each individual family can point to, we were at a crossroads and we just so happened to run into Ellington, and he came with the knowledge, he came with the professionalism, he came with the strategic plan, he came with the communication, he came with the honesty, and we were able to get out of quicksand, because a lot of us are in quicksand. We were able to get out of quicksand and build a foundation, and now we are doing much better, and we're on a different trajectory. That would be a legacy. I think I would be happy with it if I can help change the trajectory of the stats about how Black and brown people lose property over time, and change that trajectory to how Black and brown people acquire and add value and grow their wealth from property over time.
Thank you so much. Well, we want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule this afternoon to join us. We appreciate you being very honest and having this conversation with us, because like I said, our goal here is to build the whole family. And we know that finances play a very important role in alleviating some of that stress that a lot of our families and the people within our community feel on a daily basis. So definitely thank you for your participation. To our audience, thank you so much for joining us today. And don't forget to like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will see you next time. Have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
Do I do that thing that they do where they point down? Do you know where it's going to be? Do you know they're going to